Hi, everybody. Welcome along to episode 27 of Percussion Discussion. Hope you're all enjoying these interviews. If you could please subscribe to our YouTube channel, just look for North Wales Drum Promotions and give us a little tick. That would be amazing. Same again for our Facebook page. This way you won't miss any of the interviews. On to today's guest. This is a bit of a dream for me, being able to do this. A drummer who I have loved for the last 40 years. I bought his VHS instructional videos. I bought albums because he's been on them. I've seen him live. One of the most respected and revered drummers ever, really. I'd like to welcome Mr. Simon Phillips.
My pleasure. Great to be here.
Well, it's great to have you with us. I know you're a busy man. So look, we're in strange times at the moment. Are you managing to keep busy? There's obviously there's no gigs happening. What are you up to at the moment?
Right at the moment, actually, I did my my first session of the year yesterday.
Oh, right. Okay.
But let's backtrack to last year, because I know for all of us, from every musician around the world, not just musicians, but that's what we're involved in. So let's talk about that. It was a hell of a shock. I had plans to do gigs with Protocol in I think March and April. I was supposed to, I'd actually had quite a good year planned, a lot of traveling, and in fact doing a little bit of sideman playing as well, which I don't do that much of now. I was going to go to, in fact, I got back from Europe on March the 1st, and I was due to leave for Tokyo on March the 6th for Michael Schenker's 40th anniversary tour.
Right.
We had already rehearsed in Brighton. We'd already, ready to go. And March the 4th, everything was cancelled. I was supposed to go to Milano for the month of May, and at that time, that's when Milan actually was the worst place at that time on Earth for COVID. I was going to work with an Italian artist who I've played on a few albums, Gianna Nannini, and she always wanted me to go and play some live gigs with her.
Yeah.
And I just thought, hey, why not? Let's do it. It would be really fun. And then the other stuff was just make another record for another Protocol record. And I had a bunch of production stuff that I needed to do and some mixing that I had to do.
Yeah.
But otherwise, as with everybody else, everything got canceled.
Sure.
I have to say, I was incredibly lucky because within about a week of everything being canceled, I suddenly started getting emails from all over the world, from all sorts of different people who decided, I'm going to make a record. And these were mainly people who were not professional musicians. They were professionals in another sphere, but they were musicians, amateur musicians, and they'd always wanted to make a record. They obviously did, quite well in their other gig, and they'd saved up money to be able to record a record. And what better time for them to do it? So I suddenly started getting all these requests to play on people's records. I'm very lucky here in Ojai. We have a great studio here that's was owned by two people, but essentially there's only one person that's there, and that's the guy, the co-owner and the engineer.
Yeah.
So there's only two of us.
Perfect.
Apart from the guy that comes and sets up my kit, which is I don't even see him. He comes in, he leaves. This is all when we were doing, when this first started, and had to keep social distancing and stuff, and we still do. So I was able to work, and I was able to get enough work in last year. So as well as building this house, which was obviously very important that I was around. I don't know how. Now I've done it. I don't know how I would have done it had I been traveling as normal. So last year, actually, I was very lucky, and I spoke to a few other musicians of I guess, my age and in my circle,
Mm-hmm.
and they all pretty much said the same thing. Everybody was like, "Oh shit, what do we do now?" But most of them got plenty of work, studio work,
Yeah.
And I think that's owed to the fact that we've been doing it so long. I mean, I was a session musician in 1973, 74. So that's a big buildup of work,
Mm-hmm.
and reputation. And I think that's where, for certainly our age group, we lucked out in a year that could have been, absolutely disastrous, and was for many, many people.
Mm-hmm.
So I just feel very lucky that was the scenario. However, December the 1st, that was it. I got no calls, no emails, nothing, I think because of Christmas. And like I say, February the 21st was actually the first session I did. First time I actually played my kit,
Wow.
Since November something, But I do. One of the other reasons that I was busy was I'm not only playing, I'm also doing mixing gigs. Mixed a couple of albums.
Mm-hmm.
I'm co-producing various projects. So they do take up a bunch of time as well.
Yeah. Wow. So you've been busy generally. That's good. That's great. I mean, that's the story from most of the people I speak to. I mean, and I always say, obviously with the remote thing these days, can you imagine had this pandemic been 30 years ago, it would have been even more of a disaster, wouldn't it, for musicians?
Yeah, it really would have. Yeah, yeah.
It would have been a horror show. But I mean, hey, it's no picnic now. But it would have been far worse, I think. So look, let's go back. I mean, it's very well documented about where it all began for you. Obviously, with your dad's band and everything and so on. Who were your early influences, Simon?
They were all pretty much big band drummers. Gene Krupa, Buddy Rich, Sonny Payne, Louis Bellson, plus the drummers that played in my dad's band too, that people probably wouldn't have heard of. Oh boy, Dave Rogers. He was the guy that started me off playing in the first place. I'm trying to think of Alf Bigden, famous London session guy. Harold Fisher.
Oh yeah.
Kenny Clare. I never saw him play with my dad. I'm not sure if he did, but I ended up meeting Kenny quite a few times. When I was playing around. Ronnie. Well, then I started doing sessions. So people like Ronnie Verrill, Barry Morgan. So they were also, when I was a kid, influences because they were professional players. Playing Absolutely. With my dad. So as well as the well-known, mainly American drummers, there were also the London-based drummers.
Of course.
But that was my real background, was big band drummers.
And I know you got into Jesus Christ Superstar at an incredibly young age for a real a pressure gig as well, isn't it? There's no two ways about it. Any West End seat is a pressure gig, really.
Actually, there is a bit of a story to that. So my dad died in May of 1973. And suddenly I was unemployed. I mean, I was still going to school, by the way, but I'd been working professionally for 4 years, since 12. The problem was his sound was very much part of the band. And the questions were, do you want to carry on with the band? And I frankly did not want to. One, I wanted to get away from playing Dixieland. I wanted to get into rock and roll. And secondly, I didn't want to hear it sound bad with another clarinet player. Because his tone was unmatched. It was totally different to most clarinet players. And his playing, so I just felt, no, that I'm a purist when it comes to that. And so I said, no, I think it's best to disband the band, much maybe to, some of the members, disappointment, but it was a decision that had to be made, and then kind of put myself out of work, as it were.
Yes.
And then one of the piano players that played with my dad, a guy called Dave Cullen, he was playing at Superstar as the second keyboard player. Actually, there were two keyboard players, and actually there were three, of which one was conducting, and they would rotate.
Yes.
Peter Martin, David Furman, Dave Cullen. And because Anthony Bowles, who was the official conductor, was never there. I don't know what he was doing, but he came in like once every 2 months or something, and they were having problems with the replacement drummer for the original drummer, and they were looking for someone else. And Dave, bless him, put my name forward.
Wow.
And said, look, I know the guy that can do this show, but don't be alarmed. He's only 16 years old. And they kind of went, really? But I think the musicians probably went, oh, yeah, no, I've heard of him. Yeah, he's Simon Phillips. Yeah, no, I've heard of this guy, Let's give him a go. So my mum drove me in my car, because I wasn't allowed to drive yet. I could drive. I was driving since I was 8 years old, but I had to buy a car so I could put my drum kit in, and then I'd had to hire a driver. So I'd just ring, around all my mum's friends and said, would you drive me to, Middlesbrough or Birmingham for a gig? And I pay them, we get cardage or porterage, I think it's called there.
Yeah.
And I pay, and I have to sit in the passenger seat of my Mini Clubman estate and watch this guy drive my car badly, starting off from standstill in second gear. I'm thinking, my poor clutch, what are you doing to it? And he had some ridiculous explanation. And I went, oh, I could not wait to get my driver's license. And I was very, very precious about that. But anyway, that's what I had to do. My mom drove me rather hungover, because it was the day after her 50th birthday or something. And I wasn't hungover, she was.
Yes, yeah, I got that.
We drove to the Palace Theatre, Cambridge Circus, and I unloaded my drum kit and set it all up. And I'd been given the charts already, and I got the record and everything, and then the whole band were there, and they auditioned me, and apparently I got the job.
Yeah.
So that was the start of it. But what happened before was I had about a month to go. So they have to give the guy a month's notice.
Sure.
So I was all practicing, with the charts and everything. And the contractor, God, I wish I could remember his name. I can see his face right now. About a week after this audition, I get a call from him saying, the drummer from Joseph and his amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat is in hospital. He's just had a car accident. Can you come in and do the show tonight? I went, fuck me, to myself. I went, yeah. Do I need a drum kit? He said, no, play his kit. So I grabbed my sticks, snare drum, maybe cymbals, and got the bus. That's because I couldn't drive. Down to the tube station, got on the tube, and I had to meet the conductor at the stage door of whatever the theater it was that was showing Joseph, and run through the set, or run through the show. And he opens it, I'm knocking on the door, long hair, patchouli oil, beads, denim jacket, and he looks at me like, you're the drummer? You're Simon Phillips? I said, yep. And he went, well, you better come in then. So I come in, and I kind of fiddle a bit with the guy's drum kit and a little bit of tuning here and there, because I didn't think it was, And then we started running the show, just him and I, sight reading. Wow. It was the first, well, there's a lot of first tough gigs, but that was one of the toughest gigs I ever had to do, because I was so inexperienced. Anyway, we got through it, and then had a little break, got something to eat maybe, and then the whole band started turning up, and we were set up on the side of the stage, so the audience couldn't see us, but the cast could, right? So we get through this show, and I just go into that, I don't know what it is, that gear where I did okay, and the show went without a hiccup. And I noticed a lot of the cast were looking over because they could see this kid playing drums. And they're going, wow, how old is that kid? All this kind of stuff. So this was my biggest lesson of my whole career. And it stood me in very good stead. So I got the train home, woke up the next day, making some coffee, and my mom says, so how did it go? And I went, oh, it went great. I was so cocky, so big-headed about it, that I'd sight-read a London West End show first go with a little rehearsal. I thought I was the shit, And I could see she was probably going, oh, dear. Because she was, she'd been in the business quite a long time. She knew, but I was just being, what a 16-year-old kid will probably do, first time out. So I get the tube in and go in and sit down, and we start the show. Oh my God, I made so many mistakes. It was horrible. And it's so funny because the cast are all looking over and going, is that the same kid that was here yesterday? Oh, I felt horrible. I just felt awful, and I couldn't figure out why. I'm reading the same charts I did yesterday. It's just, the band stops. I'm going, oh God, there's another one, Oh man, it was embarrassing, demeaning, and the best lesson that I ever had.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
And you know what? I never forgot that. So when it came to, and then I played for about a week, I think, there, and it got better and better. I kind of figured it out, and but I guess that's just a learning curve. And bless them, the musicians were great. I think they understood. I thought, he's obviously talented. He's good. He can do it, but he's got a shitload to learn. Which is any 16-year-old kid playing with 30-year-olds is gonna.
Of course.
And so when Superstar came, and I did my first night at Superstar, which was, that was a pretty high pressure gig with being on stage at one of the biggest theaters there. It was one of the biggest shows at the time in London. It'd been running about a year, and I was obviously careful and very nervous for the first show, but it was the second show. And the next consequent shows, I was very super careful of to not be too smart,
No complacency.
So that was, that was a very, very good lesson. And you know what? It still holds. I mean, obviously now I have a little bit more experience, but it still holds fast that the first show is always a lot of adrenaline, and you're but once you get that under your belt, you kind of relax, maybe sometimes too much.
Yeah.
So you always gotta be on the case, on alert, as it were.
Yeah. It just shows and proves the power of reading music, how many doors it opens that perhaps if you couldn't read, those doors would be, you wouldn't find the doors, never mind open them,
It's also, it's an amazing way to play music. It's something that I used to really enjoy, and especially later on in like maybe the later 70s, when I was doing less and less reading, because the sessions I was doing were more rock and roll sessions where somebody just play show you the chords, and you write maybe a cheat sheet or something.
Yes.
So actually reading charts became less and less the more I got involved, I guess, in recording.
Yeah.
And then occasionally I get a call from Alan Parker, guitarist, for a library session. And I knew these library sessions were like all reading, serious reading, And I'd go to Lansdowne Studios, and the room's full of 10 musicians or something, and a thick pile of charts. and everyone is reading. And the first couple, it's like a language. The first couple, you're going, oh, what's table in German? Tisch, Tita, der Tisch, right? Yes, you know what I mean? It's kind of like that. But then after the third song, suddenly I used to really enjoy playing a tune. You have no idea how it goes.
Yeah.
Or, here's a tempo. What kind of groove is it? Okay, kind of what it is. And off you go. And you discover on the way. And it's a beautiful way to play music because you have no idea what the fuck you're doing, Yeah, it's instinct, pure instinct. And I think it really helps when you're playing music where you don't have to read.
Yes. Absolutely.
You can play music without listening to yourself. I think too many players do tend to listen to themselves too much. You got to listen to everybody else and listen to the song or the music as a whole, not as just your part. You know what I mean?
Of course.
So it's a wonderful thing to be able to do, read music. It really is.
I can't imagine doing it any other way. It's the way I was brought up, and something I'm very grateful of with my dad forcing it on me. Literally, I didn't appreciate it at the time, but now it's it's a gift. But now, obviously,
absolutely,
we talk about pressure, and I've listened to so much of your stuff as many millions have across the world. Drummers, other musicians as well. Is there anything that phases you musically anymore, or would you just look at everything and go, yeah, I can do that? I mean, I listen to some of the stuff you've done and I'm thinking, no, I wouldn't know where to start. Are you ever phased musically at all? Is that a question I can ask? I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, oh, sure. I mean, all of us, I can tell you, because we talk about this. I mean, even with Toto on the bus, you got Lukather, you got David Page, and somebody say, man, I did a session the other day and they pulled out this chart and I just went, oh, no, of course it does. Yeah. I mean, everything is a challenge and nothing's easy, to do a job well. It takes, but there are some people write some music which is really difficult to play. And some of it is not very playable either. And that's the challenge. You got to try to figure out how to do it. I'll give you an example. Hiromi, the Hiromi Trio project. I mean, she would send me a PDF and an MP3. And the MP3 is just her playing a piano, no click, nothing. Sometimes I don't even know where one is.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at the chart and it's all handwritten and a bit scrawly. And I'm like trying to figure out how to play this thing, and I can tell you one of the rehearsals we had, I swear, Anthony and I, we must have sounded like two 5-year-olds trying to play because it was so difficult, this stuff. I mean, and Anthony is amazing. I mean, his reading chops are incredible and his facility is incredible. But, she would write stuff that would have us both tied up in knots for a while. And then eventually we get used to it and then we figure out how to play it, Yeah, but it's daunting, sure.
That's good to know. I mean, I'm glad you mentioned Hiromi because I've been listening to the Spark album for some months and I had no idea that would have been essentially a reading gig. Would she have written drum parts for you or just piano parts? No, it's she's just writing out basically the bass and the basic melody lines and some chords and of course chord symbols and stuff like that. Of course.
But no, all the drum parts that's totally up to me to figure out and come up with. And the challenge is with all these bunches of this bunch of songs that we've got to do. The challenge is to try to make each song sound a little bit different. So, for example, if she's got 3 songs on the album that are all in 7/8, you got a problem.
Yeah.
Because you don't want that to be the same as this. So that's what I look for in the music itself. I look for some hints from what she's playing to focus in on. And there's a couple of songs you'll notice that I'm playing very much a pattern, a very repeated, very disciplined pattern. I'm putting a little bit more of a pop or rock concept onto the song. I don't want to just play any old kind of groove in 7. I want it to be something a little bit more composed. Sure. So what I would do is actually just grab a few bars of her MP3. I import it into Pro Tools and make a loop.
Okay.
And then, you know, put the meter on it, and because she doesn't do it with a metronome, I just have to figure it out, and then I'll just put it on loop and I'll just play along to it. I might just stop and listen again. I might just play kick drum and find out where does the groove really work with the melody that she's playing, you know, or her pattern that she's playing. And then I'll go, and I quickly record it because I'll forget. That's the other thing. I come up with something and then totally forget it. So I always like to record stuff.
Of course.
And that way I can come up with a different approach to this particular song. Then when we get together, I'll just say, hey, let's try this song. I've got an idea for this. It's probably very different to what you're imagining. And she, okay, let's play. Mm-hmm. And she knows, you know, I mean, we've worked enough together. And I play this thing, and Auntie's like, oh, and then he comes up with something, although most of his stuff was written, because she writes very contrapunctually, you know, the bass is a very big part of her left hand.
Yes, of course.
But on the terms of the actual groove he's playing, he'll then, you know, we'll you know, sort out something. And often it worked, and we got a different sounding tune to the rest of the tunes.
Yeah.
So it's quite a challenge, you know.
It's a hell of an album.
Absolutely. Yeah. Or I mean, that band was one of the best projects I've ever been involved in, and not only musically but socially. We had such a lovely time. It was, you know, 3 pretty quiet people.
Yeah.
I was probably the most gregarious of the 3, and I'm fairly quiet, you know, compared to other people I know. And we would just have a lovely time traveling, having dinner together, and we were also very comfortable about being on a long journey in a bus or a van or a car, and not having to say anything. Yeah. That's one of the things. When you put people together, they feel compelled to have, you know, some sort of social intercourse. And sometimes on a long tour, you just want to sit there, look out the window, and just dig life, you know.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are not comfortable with that.
Yeah.
This is the thing about being on the road with the right people, you know.
Yeah.
And we were great at that. And then, you know, an hour later, something, you know, would come up, or something would happen. Oh, look at that, you know. And then we'd ask Anthony, because he was like our walking encyclopedia, you know. It was great. Yeah. It was a lovely project.
You can almost
very demanding.
Oh, 100%. I can almost hear the joy in everybody's playing in that album. It's a joyful thing, isn't it? It really is. Yeah. I've had it on repeat for at least a month, and it's just fabulous stuff. So it's very different, isn't it?
Oh yeah, you should see some of the YouTube clips. There's some funny moments, because you know we mistakes are made, and there's one video, and you don't know actually what's happening because you don't know the story.
Yeah.
And the camera obviously is only one POV at a time. But there's some things that happened. We would have a little break, then we come back together and we're playing a song, and all of a sudden Hiromi went to a different section, and it's a different meter to what I was playing in.
Right.
And I'm going, oh shit, did I just totally blow it? Did I miss a section? Did I? What? So I had to kind of stumble back, and I knew where she'd gone. So, and whatever meter that was in, I had to kind of like, right, there's the downbeat and playing. And she had her head down, and I'm still going, there's something missing. I think we missed a whole section. And she looked up and she had this look on her face like,
Guilty.
oops. And I started laughing, and Anthony we were laughing. She was so embarrassed, to be Japanese, and she was like, I'm sorry. She totally missed a whole great section out of this song. It was hilarious, and dear. Stuff would happen like that. Yeah. That's what makes it so lovely.
And it's nice to know that happens at the highest level as well as my low level, because it's that's the way it is. It's live, it's music, isn't it? Dear me.
You see, I'm a little bit weird like that. I get bored when everything's the same every night. I also get bored when I see musicians kind of not concentrating properly and not actually being in a very creative mood either. And sometimes I like to throw in a little bit of a wrench in the works to wake everybody up. I love mistakes, because mistakes bring everybody back to the now time.
Yeah.
In the moment. And all of a sudden they're having to play by instinct, not by rote.
Yes.
And it's a very important thing. And I, with my band, I'll always keep an eye out for everybody and see everybody's getting way too complacent here. This sounds like a smooth jazz band or something, or whatever, whatever I'm thinking at the time. And I might just go, okay, I think we need to spice this up a little bit. And I might just do something which will wake everybody up. I like to, for that kind of music, I like to sometimes bring people out of their comfort zone.
Yeah. That's good.
It makes them, if they're great musicians, it makes them start really, creating.
Yeah.
And I think I've learned that from all the great musicians I played with. Jack Bruce, especially. I mean, he was a great one for, throwing a little bit of spice in there. It needs that. I like that. I like a bit of anarchy. Pete Townsend with the Who.
Yeah.
I like that anarchy. I like that thing. I kind of learned that really from those two guys, actually.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of the Who, I mean, that must have been a great. I mean, I know you followed Kenny into that gig, I believe, if I got my information correct. That must have been a great.
No, that's right. Yeah.
Perhaps a departure from what you'd done in the past, maybe slightly. Was it a gig?
I had, at that point, I had been playing the couple of years before. I was playing with Mick Jagger, and we did a tour of Japan and a tour of Australia. So I think, apart from the Arms tour, that was like the first like mega touring level band that I'd been in. The Arms tour was pretty spectacular. I mean, with all those guys in the band, it's pretty amazing. Private jet and private 707.
Wow.
Not a 737. I mean, a 4-engine jet, big jet. Yeah. And you've got a band with Jimmy Page, Eric Clapton, Jeff Beck. Bill Wyman, Charlie Watts, Kenny Jones. I mean, it's ridiculous. Jan Hammer. That's a Joe Cocker, Steve Winwood. I mean, that's a hell of a plane full, So that was that kind of the first time I got, experience of that level of touring.
Yeah. And
then with Mick, obviously, and then right after Mick, into the Who.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a progression. But it was, it was lovely. I mean, Pete asked me a little while before that about would I like to do it, and I said, well, I don't know. I mean, what's up with Kenny? What's happening there? And he said, oh, we figured that out. That's, I said, okay, well, as long as that's cool, then great, And it was a wonderful tour, 42 shows in the States, I think. And it was amazing, absolutely amazing.
Yeah, that sounds like a fun gig. I mean, you've done some incredible stuff. I mean, and I've got a question, if you don't mind. We haven't mentioned Jeff Beck. We've kind of skipped over that for no reason. It's just the way it's gone. But I've got a question from a friend of mine, a good mate of mine, and he's another former Jeff Beck drummer, Steve Barney, the UK drummer.
Oh,
and he's
yes, okay.
Yeah, Steve's a great guy, and he sends you his best regards. And he said,
great.
We were chatting this morning, and he said, he sent me a great track. He sent me a text over, and he said, he said, if you get the chance, ask Simon about this track. I said, well, I'll ask on your behalf. So here it is. And it says, what are your memories of recording Violet to Blue, Nick Kershaw? If you can remember that.
Oh, yeah.
A fine track.
Absolutely, yeah. It was, I can't remember the name of the studio. It was kind of northeast, like Islington or Finsbury Park. Oh, actually, shoot, where did I put all those? I have just been doing because I'm trying to write a book, and I've actually been logging all of my sessions.
Right, okay.
From 1971 onwards. If I can find the folder, give me 1 second. Here we go. Here's a folder.
Wow.
And I think I'm only up to the late 90s at the moment. I think, where have I got to? 95. Oh, shit, not even that. 95, right? Because unfortunately, I lost, a lot of my diaries and stuff like that. Luckily, I have my old diaries before computers. But from when I moved to the States, I stopped keeping diaries because I couldn't find those English Let's diaries you get in W.H. Smith.
Yeah,
couldn't get them over here, so I started using a big blotter pad, and they all burned. So I'm having to recreate that. But I should be able to tell you, I think it would be 1986. Maybe not, because Nick used to actually come and work in my studio. Right. Swan Yard.
Right.
That's what it was. Swan Yard Studios. It was for an album called Radio Musicola. Stuart Bruce was the engineer. I remember the studio very well because they had 2 Atari MTR 90s, which were 2-track machines, and an SSL console. And that was when I made the decision to buy an MTR 90 for my studio.
Right. Because
it was, I felt, a more modern designed recorder than a Studer A80. I couldn't really afford a Studer A800 at the time, and also very big.
Yes.
I didn't really want to use up all that real estate. So the Atari was just the same width as an A80. So I do remember that very well. I just remember that it was a shuffly kind of groove, halftime shuffle.
Of course.
Which everybody, of course, says, is either a Rosanna groove or a Purdy shuffle or John Bonham. But actually, I think Purdy is the guy that should be credited with it. Because I know that Bonzo and Jeff probably, copied that, but we all did. It wasn't anything that new.
Yeah.
It's the Purdy shuffle, but all it is a halftime shuffle. So that's what I remember of it, and a beautiful song.
Absolutely.
Nick is. I haven't seen him for a long time, but back then we lived in one town. I was living in Suffolk, and he was there too, and so we would socialize quite a bit. And I remember him sending me his demos of his first album. And the demos were stunning, absolutely stunning. And when I heard them, I went, because he was playing guitar in a band, Reg Webb. You know who that is?
It's not Elton John, is
Webb.
It?
Ever heard of him?
Isn't that Elton John's?
No. That's Reg Dwight.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was
No,
going
Reg
to say,
Dwight
yeah, I've heard of him.
is he's a keyboard player. He might be blind. You know what? I can't remember. Anyway, that's his name, and Nick was playing guitar in his band.
Right.
But these songs were amazing. He had nothing, almost nothing. He didn't even have a drum machine. His snare drum was snapping a ruler against a wall like that for all the offbeats. You know,
Yeah.
Beautifully made demos, minimalistic, and the songs were great. And frankly, Peter Collins was the producer. I mean, all the songs were exactly the same arrangements.
Yeah, yeah.
Didn't need any change. They were
Wow.
lovely. So yeah, Nick's an absolute genius. You know. So that song, Violet to Blue, beautiful, beautiful song.
It is. I'd not heard it until Steve sent me he included it in a text message. I think it was yesterday. He said, it's beautiful. Ever listen to this? Ask Simon.
Wow.
So there we go. He knows the answer now. So, you know, time's ticking on. I don't want to keep you too long, Simon. I have to ask,
Okay.
where did the open-handed playing come from? Has it always been the same for you from the beginning?
No. It was a culmination of a few things. So when I started to play a double drum kit, which was 1974, I think. Yeah, would have been 74. And I had it was a blue Heyman kit, 222s, 12, 13-inch rack, 14, 16 floor. And I was playing right-handed. And I started adding tom-toms. And then suddenly I had a fifth tom, 3 racks, 2 floors. And then the problem was adding rack number 1, which was eventually was a 10-inch. It was always a problem with that hi-hat. And then, as an aside, I went to see Billy Cobham play when he played the Rainbow in '74 with the Brecker brothers in his band, and Glenn Ferris on trombone, Alex Blake on bass, John Abercrombie, and a great keyboard player called Michel Lviv, who I'd been a big fan of way before, because he played in Don Ellis's band, Bulgarian keyboard player. And I saw Billy playing lefty. I went, oh, wow, I had no idea. And I went, it looks so cool.
Yeah.
And I said, I want to learn how to play like that. Because for 2 reasons, I'll be able to put my hi-hat lower and be able to get to that tom-tom without having to, leap over like a hurdle.
Sure.
And it looks so fucking cool. It looks so cool. And as a 17-year-old, that's so important. It's got to look good,
Of course.
And that's kind of how the design of the kit came, because I like the way it looks, So I started, I think in 1975, I started teaching myself how to play left-handed.
Wow.
And most of it I did in my rental apartment in Kensington on the arm of a sofa, raggedy old sofa, and listening to the sticks, how they sounded on the arm. Yeah. And the difference of how my left hand would sound to my right hand. That was the key. It was, one thing is the technical part of it, like swapping everything over and making sure your kick drum and your left hand play together, not the right hand. But more than that, it's the tone. It's the tone of each stick. If you pick up 2 sticks, they will never sound the same. You hold that like that. You probably can't hear it on Zoom, but that's one stick, and then that's the other stick. Now, these are fairly close, but there's a slight difference. See, it's high pitch.
Yeah, I can hear that.
Now, that's a good pretty much pair of sticks, but they still sound different. But the other thing we never think of, our hands sound different too. Our hands do, what's the word? They do influence the sound of that stick. That's why when you hit a drum with your right hand and your left hand, there's a difference in sound.
Okay.
And that's why a drum machine doesn't work. Because it's the same, da, 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 da. It's like playing with one hand.
Yes.
But it doesn't go like that. You have to do two samples, a left hand and a right-handed sample, to make it sound more natural.
Yeah.
So that was one of the big things, is getting my left hand to sound like the right hand. Okay. And by doing it on an innate piece of furniture which doesn't have any tone, you could actually hear the stick. And I couldn't play the drum kit anyway.
Yeah.
It was an apartment in London. There was just no way.
Yeah.
So I just do that for hours on end, playing along to records. And then when I got the chance to sit at the drum kit, I practice it.
Wow.
And then at that time, I started doing a lot of sessions. And most of these sessions in 1975 were disco. So as long as I could play that disco beat, I got through it, could read the music. And I had a ride cymbal on the right, just in case. And literally taught myself at that age to swap everything around.
That's incredible.
And then rest is history. It's something you can do when you're young.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. I mean, I believe I heard a story that Tiger Woods totally changed his technique at some point of his career, and he had to kind of almost relearn. And it benefited him amazingly,
Because it's a risk initially, isn't it?
Yeah, but at 18, you're not worried about that.
No, I suppose.
Yeah.
I can imagine it's
and
like,
if as long as you can get through.
Yeah. Well, I can imagine it's like learning to walk
like
again.
that.
Yeah. That's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was it. It was a decision I made. I mean, took about a year to kind of get really, confident doing it and setting up my kit with getting that right cymbal over to the left.
Sure.
I mean, I could have done something else in that year. I could have maybe, been a better drummer. I don't know.
I don't know about that.
I decided to do that. So, it's a decision that you make. And I think it stood me in very good stead from a physical point of view, because I just turned 64 and I played a large kit for many, many years, and I have no elbows.
Yeah.
I don't have any back problems. I don't have any finger problems, no carpal tunnel. I never get any blisters or anything.
Yeah.
And I think that's helped because it's kept my back straight.
Yeah, posture, of course.
Had to do that with the shoulder, And the other thing is, playing a double bass drum kit, you're sitting in the middle of the kit. You're not kind of twisted, which I think can also cause back problems.
Yeah.
So I owe that to, I think, changing the way I played. Yeah.
And of course, it opens the entire right hand side of the kit up, whereas perhaps left hand normally would want to play things around there. It's just, I guess it makes sense, doesn't it, when you look at it?
It does. It does. Yeah. It really opened up the being able to do certain grooves with toms. Certainly when soloing, it opens up a whole different thing because you can keep a pattern with your left hand and play around the kit like this. It's fabulous. Yeah.
Well, incredible. Well, look, Simon, I've taken up more than enough of your time. You've been very kind with it, so I appreciate it. And before we go, I have to say a big thank you to our mutual friend, Mr. Simon Kirk, for setting this up. It's much appreciated. So, look, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Simon. You've been a
Thank you,
gentleman.
Maddie. Great. Really
Much
enjoyed
appreciated.
it.
Thank you.
All right.
See you next time. Bye-bye.